Welcome to Table Talk, the place for deep conversations in the Geekverse. And trust me, when we tear into a subject, we go deep. I'm Heath, and I'll be your host. Each episode, I'll be talking with... Well, I tell you what, why don't we just get started? Welcome, everyone. Whoa, this is very strange going on tonight. It is a Sunday night, and yet here we are live on Table Talk. Man, thank you so much for being here. Well, we've got lots of people who are interested tonight. Let me tell you, I have loved this show. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. And I meant to do a lot more here, but it completely snuck up on me. That this was the start of House of the Dragon, because it's also Father's Day, and I went to visit my dad, and I went to work, and then I went to visit my dad, and things like that were going on. So there was a lot of stuff going on, and I was like, oh, and I forgot to even talk about the House of the Dragon, and I was supposed to do something, and I was like, what do I do? Oh, well, I just guess I can't be, I just guess I won't do it. But I was like, no, I got back, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go live, and we're going to talk about this House of the Dragon. And I just finished watching the House of the Dragon, and also, the concluding remarks for their behind the scenes and things like that. So I just figured, hey, let's just do it. Let's just talk about that. I was taking some notes. I took some notes. I also have, one of the things I was going to do was I was going to go through the House of the Dragon, the book, and I didn't get to do that yet. But who knows? We might still do it because we have another week before the next House of the Dragon comes back. And I want to talk about, I'll just say I really enjoyed this episode. I have enjoyed this series like I have not enjoyed television in a long time. So I think we should probably talk about that in the context of what this means with television and why we all love it. Let's see who's here. I'm going to check the comments and see who's here. I don't know. It's Sunday night. We don't shoot table talks on Sunday nights. Nobody may be here. So let's see here. Oh, we got James Bacon is here. Okay, so James Bacon says boo. So James Bacon is here. So, hey, good to see you. Well, hey, yes, I am excited because I loved watching television again. And, to me, this is part of what Table Talk is about. We don't talk about things that we don't like. I mean, generally speaking, it's possible that we go watch something and then we find out that we don't like it. That's possible. And what do we do here? People have asked me that. What do you do here? Because I've been asked when we've been doing Table Talk, I was like, we try to be positive and constructive on Table Talk. But then people ask me, well, what happens if I don't like it? Maybe I can't do that because I didn't actually like the episode or the movie or the whatever. I was like, that's okay. That perhaps my approach to saying, hey, we need to be positive is not the right answer to what we are trying to do here on the Table Talk channel. I do mean that we need to be constructive, because it's completely possible that I watched tonight's episode and I didn't like it, in which case I would tell you. I mean, that's fine. But there were still levels of being constructive that we should be. Or that's the goal. That, okay, if we didn't like it, then we understand why we didn't like it, and we talk about it and we understand. I was very, very happy to be back in the world of Westeros again tonight. So I'll tell you, of course, it's been a while since we've had the House of the Dragon season 1. And I was not, I was like, I should go rewatch the entire episode. But it's the entire season. It was Father's Day. I got back. I started to rewatch the last episode of season 1. I want to go back and I want to rewatch the whole thing. And also then, like I said, I got the book right here and I was intending to go through it, and I was going to go through the entire thing. But, right, yes, Bacon Gaming says we need to be honest, not necessarily positive. So that's honest, constructive. That doesn't necessarily always mean that you or say something that you like something that's going on, but we need to be honest without bias. I completely agree. And Bacon Gaming says, which isn't easy sometimes. But, there was a time, let's go back to when season 1 was airing. What was our situation with television at the time? Well, we had been through the Game of Thrones and its final season, which I was not happy with. I am a big Song of Ice and Fire, the books fan. I am a fan of the Song of Ice and Fire. I am a fan of what I believe George R.R. Martin is trying to say about that. That doesn't mean that I don't have critiques of particularly the later books, which seem to, move rather slowly. We'll say. So I've got some critiques there, but by and large, when it was time to go through the Song of Ice and Fire books, I loved them. And those are some fantastic memories that I have. When my aunt was reading at the same time, my brother was reading them at, roughly the same time. So we were able to bounce ideas off of each other. And so the books of the Song of Ice and Fire and going through those. No, I did listen to the audiobooks in some case, but reading some books, listening to some audiobooks, things like that. That was a really important experience in my life. And of course, reading Tolkien in my life also is, so my family is hugely influenced by Tolkien. One of the very first things that you do when you are old enough to understand a chapter book, but not actually read a chapter book, is to have someone read The Hobbit to you. And I've been trying to continue that, in my family. So Tolkien is a big part of this. And then, I really like what I believe George R. Martin was trying to say, and, then we can have all kinds of discussions about whether or not that fully manifested. Probably did not, I think, in the television show. And so, there was a lot of negativity about television when that occurred, right? Okay, we had, and of course, you can see all of that on YouTube. You've got the negativity about the way that the Game of Thrones ended, and I completely agree with that. I was not happy about it. I held on. I held on to the Game of Thrones TV show for a long time. I was like, you know what? I want this to, I want this to be right. I would tell my aunt, I would tell her things like, okay, they got to wrap this up and they got to do this and they got to do this. And we were just holding on. It's like, okay, well, eventually they're just never going to do it. And that was very disappointing. And then, actually, you know what we just had happen? Do you know who is here? You know who just came in? I just sent him a text message and I was like, you know what? I'm doing this impromptu live. And you know what? Douglas A. Burton is here.
What's up, Pete? How you doing, man?
I'm good. Thank you so much. Did you watch?
I did. I watched the episode and we're back. We're back to some good television.
I know. It is so good to be I text messaged Doug because I was like, I didn't know I was doing this. And I was just like,
what's
Doug,
up, Bacon?
Because it's Father's Day. I mean, Doug is celebrating Father's Day and everything else. And I was like, but I'll just text some people the live link. And so Doug is here.
So I spent some time in the pool today, so I'm a little red. You'll have to forgive me. But the kids are now in bed. They had a long weekend, and it was quite a thing for me and Crystal to settle down and watch House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 1, and boy, was I thrilled. I am so excited.
Oh, so you loved it too. Okay.
Okay.
Because that's okay. Like we were just talking about, it's okay if you didn't like it. But I mean, I was back. I was so glad that I was back. So you felt the same way?
I felt the same way. In fact, so I think you did, based on your text, it sounds like you went back and rewatched Season 1. Is that correct?
No, I did not. I did not get to rewatch all Season 1. I was planning on it, but today was Father's Day. I actually forgot that it was today. The release was today because there was Father's Day, and so I was kind of in a Father's Day because I was planning on rewatching, and it was like Father's Day. I was like, oh my God, what do I do? I guess I just watched it. I was like, no, I'll just go impromptu live because I was planning on rewatching all of Season 1 and planning on reading all of the book here.
Oh yeah, I've read that book.
So I was so I might do that next week or something. But with and I was like, Father's Day, oh my God, it's here. So let's just go.
Okay, so then you and I are pretty much going to be on the exact same page. So I saw all of Season 1 last year, loved it, but I have not rewatched it. And this episode, man, they hit the ground running. They did. So I watched the previously. On House of Dragon.
Right. I watched that too. I watched the last 20 minutes. I sat down, I watched the last 20 minutes of the last episode of Season 1 because that's all the time I had. So I skipped forward and I watched that, and then I was like, all right, let's go. So I was kind of refreshing myself, and I was going, oh my God, yeah. Okay, so I was trying to have a conversation. I was talking about Doug. Hey, Scott, good to see you. Good to see you, Scott. Coming in on X. Thank you, Scott. Good to see you. Hey, let's do it. Let's do a toast to Scott. First time in the chat. Thank
Hey,
you.
cheers, Scott.
So, I was trying to go back to the environment when this TV show originally came out, which was not great for TV because I was very critical of the end of the Game of Thrones. I mean, even though I love what the books. And generally speaking, I mean, we go into much more detail, but generally speaking, I love the books and what George R. R. Martin was trying to say with those books, or what I think he was trying to say with those books. I held out on the TV show for a long time, and then I was like, "Oh my God, this is just not going in the right direction." And but I hung on very late. And so that was at the end of that, I was several episodes into the last season. I was like, no, hang on. They're going to do something. They're going to do something. Right. I was texting like my aunt and stuff. No, this stuff's going to happen. It's going to happen. And then, of course, and then eventually I was like, okay, we're not. So that was this was before I started live streaming. This was just before I started live streaming. And that was a very negative time for television. I mean,
well, it was really the transition into what has become a new tradition of bad entertainment or anti-entertainment, I would almost argue.
Well, yes, you can make that argument. I mean, we had been through. I'm thinking, what was I thinking? That we had just been through Game of Thrones, that had ended. Generally speaking, people thought ended badly, and so there was negatively there. Yeah,
real quick. We won't do spoilers, and if we do, we'll make a clear-cut announcement that we're going to divulge information from the show. Just for anyone watching, it's not worth it to have it spoiled. So we'll give a clear warning if we're going to start talking about specific details.
That is a good point. I didn't actually even think about that when we were going through here. So let's try to not do spoilers.
Okay, fair enough.
Let's try to not do that because ordinarily what I would do, like I said, when the last time it aired, I was not even doing any live streaming, and so what I would do is I would watch it and then I would immediately watch it again.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to go watch this again. But so if we can.
No, you were doing a good job. And I think it's a great job, actually, and a good idea to reset the stage on the path of Game of Thrones here. This Game of Thrones was, and I'll just go one step back and then I'll hand it right back off to you. But Game of Thrones was a cultural phenomenon. This was an event. I remember when it first came out, I watched the first episode. God, but what was it? 2010? And I remember it didn't grab me. It was just like, okay. And I moved on. And then like 3 years later, I started noticing people talking about it. And so I re-engaged and I realized, okay, this is a legitimate TV show. This is good stuff. And it got to be almost fever pitch in culture. I remember by the time we got to season 6 and 7, everybody was in on this. And I'm talking like normies, my parents.
We were making Game of Thrones reference at the university, like during faculty meetings.
Yeah. Well,
during that time.
Did you guys have watch parties at like local bars and stuff?
Well, I know later I had it over at my friend's house. We would have watch parties at my friend's house. He had like a home theater. He had a home theater where we had a projection up on the wall and stuff like that. And we would go.
Yeah. Well, we had watch parties at local bars here in Austin. So my wife and I would literally go to the bar and they'd put Game of Thrones up there and we would watch it with a whole crowd. It was like an opening night crowd at a bar. So you're sitting there slamming a beer. And if something happens, people are cheering and clapping. Like it was such a communal event. Like everybody was in on it. And it was so exciting and it was so fun. And like every episode delivered, which is such a rarity. Usually there's like a filler episode and Game of Thrones just delivered every time. And I remember
for a while
until season 8. In fact, I liked it all the way through season 7. I can forgive picking up the pace when you need to start closing out a big epic story like this. Like you're not going to be able to have the perfect end. You're going to have to cut a corner or two to speed things along. So I was forgiving of season 7. And it still felt like Game of Thrones. And I remember we had a big watch party for the premiere of season 8 at a friend of mine's house, who's actually been in the chat in previous table talks, Michael Tyke. Anyway, we all went over there, and the first episode, I noticed how clean and perfect all the costumes were, and I was a little off-put by that because it almost looked like they had become self-aware of their greatness, and they had started to like put too much effort into image. And after the first episode of season 8, I was like, boy, I don't know. I don't know if I liked it. And the worst thing you could do, Heath, and I know you'll back me up on this because you said you held out, was to say you didn't like a Game of Thrones episode. Nobody was on your side. And I was on defense immediately from a lot of people. And I remember I was so on defense that I liked, I think, episode 4. I was like, there was some good dialogue in episode 4, but I didn't like almost every episode of season 8. And early on, I was the party pooper that no one wanted to talk to because I didn't like it.
Well, I was holding out. That doesn't mean that I was like, cheerleading for it. I was like, okay, that didn't really work, but you know what?
You're like, hold off.
They're going to do it. They're like, I was still there, but
right.
Also at that time, He-Man was going on, the Netflix He-Man.
Really?
And that was right before I started streaming. And, there was all kinds of drama regarding the Netflix.
With Kevin
He-Man.
Smith?
Right. The Kevin Smith He-Man.
Oh,
right. Yeah.
There
was all that drama going on. And that's why I was saying that at the time, there was a whole bunch of negativity. And then when these two things, about television and so forth, and I remember feeling down as well. This is before I started streaming. I should have just started streaming and said something. But I remember thinking, I remember making a conscious decision because Rings of Power was coming out and House of Dragon, the House of the Dragon.
Oh my God.
So, Rings of Power and House of the Dragon. And I remember making a very conscious decision when those two were coming out. I was like, you know what? I'm feeling beat up, all of that. But you know what? I'm going to go in and I'm going to watch both of those shows because one, I love Tolkien and Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
Okay. So I was like, you know what? Because I love it so much, I'm going to give Rings of Power a try. And then also number 2, I was like, I loved reading The Song of Ice and Fire for so long and discussing it with my aunt and my brother and all of that for so long. And I loved Game of Thrones for many seasons, not all of them, but the beginning of the game, 4 seasons, whatever it was, I loved those. And so I decided that I was like, you know what? Screw the negativity. I'm throwing all of that to the wind. I'm going to watch both of those shows for what they are.
Right.
And that was what I did. So that was a major turning point in what people would be like, okay, negativity and because it was a down. I think it was a down era, but I decided, you know what? I'm not going to let that influence me. I remember things that I love about this, and I still remain a huge Tolkien fan. And then I watched both of them. Now with Rings of Power, I would forget that I was watching Rings of Power within 10 minutes. I tried multiple times to watch that show. And even the first episode, maybe eventually I got through 3 episodes, but I would literally forget I was watching that TV show when I started it. I don't think I finished it. I don't know. But I was like, I gave it a chance. I was like, I'm going to watch. And I ended up not liking Rings of Power. But, I gave it a chance. And then I also gave House of the Dragon a chance. And and House of the Dragon did everything right. I said, all right, let's just try. I'm going to turn it on. Because I'm going to remember everything I love about George R.R. Martin. I'm going to watch the show. And as soon as it started, I was drawn in. Whoa. My attention just turned. I was focused, and I've loved this show. And so that makes everything right.
100%, Heath. You could not have invented a better dichotomy of shows if you tried to create one in a science lab. You have two shows from the identical genre, both fantasy, high fantasy. And it's almost like a boxing match. And in one corner, you've got J.R.R. Tolkien, you've got Jeff Bezos, and the power of Amazon that's going to bring Lord of the Rings to life on the screen on Amazon Prime, delivered to universally to everyone who has Amazon Prime, which is like everybody. And in the other corner, you've got much smaller George R.R. Martin, and you've got House of the Dragon, which is a follow-up that nobody asked for, that nobody cared about, living in the disgrace of Game of Thrones season 8. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. There was no buzz. There was nothing. So you had the ultimate underdog, because I remember myself feeling absolute apathy for House of the Dragon. I was like, I don't care about House of the Dragon. Why did they bother making?
People felt that way. That like after what happened with Game of Thrones, do I care? And there are a lot of people who felt that way. I mean,
totally. I was like, I don't care.
Including myself at my most negative moments, because I remember. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in my life that, and even that that carried over to entertainment. I was like, oh my God, and I intentionally stopped myself, and I was like, no,
right.
I'm going to try these with the best intentions possible.
Well, I wish I had your nobility. I was, and I say that in a good sense. What I mean is, like, I was not in that state of mind. I was much more in, okay, so I've got what seems to be lining up to be a bad Lord of the Rings TV show and a stupid follow-up to Game of Thrones, which I don't know if I could recreate the world that existed before House of the Dragon came out. Game of Thrones as a franchise was so dead. There was no memes. It was dead on social media. Nobody cared. Nobody talked about it. It was so decisive that episode or season 8 was a disaster. This was a dead franchise. So my interest was 0. And my interest in Rings of Power was like 1. So I was coming into it opposite.
So I was a little bit reversed. I mean, 0 and 1 are both pretty bad, but
they're pretty
like
bad.
You and I reversed.
Right. So I'm coming in from the other side of where Heath was coming in.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is it didn't matter which side you were coming in on, because we all ended up in the same side after the first episode of both shows. I watched Rings of Power, and it seemed to me like big budget gibberish. J.R.R. Tolkien nonsense. And I was like, this is awful. And it was unwatchable. And then I put on House of the Dragon, which, again, 0 interest. And I was hooked. The dialogue hit immediately. The visuals hit immediately.
Visuals, right? Like as soon as I saw that, what they put on the House of the Dragon, I was immediately drawn back into the world, and I was like, oh my God, here we
go. Which was like throwing a Hail Mary.
Yeah.
In a football game. It's like you're on the 1-yard line in enemy territory, and you're going to send them all down the field. And instead of a desperate act of a football offense, I watched the team drop back, run a cool play, run another, and suddenly they're scoring touchdowns left and right. And I was like, House of the Dragon is good. Oh my God. And it's not just like B+ good. It was like A+ good.
It restored faith in television storytelling. At least we'll say fantasy television storytelling. It restored faith in fantasy television storytelling instantly when it came on. To me.
Yes.
And I would say we have 87 people watching right now. So wherever you are watching, please do hit the like button and subscribe and follow. So I mean, this is amazing that we have so many people watching right now. So I hope that you feel the same way about this as we do.
It's a great topic, Heath, and it's because there's something exciting, I think, especially in this day and age where franchises are so often not only mishandled but abused, and like they have become platforms for anti-entertainment. And so much of us in the fandom have become accustomed to watching just these great IPs come out with such average or below average efforts. And House of the Dragon was just not that. And I remember in every episode, when the credits hit, I was like, oh, I got to wait another week before another episode. And I didn't usually feel like that. And I remember even there was one episode that elevated so high that I literally was sitting there and I was like, House of the Dragon is one of the best shows on TV. Like, this is unbelievable drama. There was that scene in season 1 where King Viserys was, remember, he was slowly degenerating and looking more and more like horrific, almost like corpse-like. And he, in this one episode, he summons himself up out of being bedridden for death. And he's like hobbling into this like throne room to like try to restore order from what looks like pending disaster. And there's going to be this buffet. And I remember sitting in my living room and just observing the brilliant cinematography, the brilliant storytelling, and the gravity of the scene of this old near-death king willing his way back into politics. He's not presentable. He's not really in power anymore. And yet when he returns, he has all the gravitas of the king. This is like a Return of the King moment in a very different context. And I just remember being like, wow, I don't think I've seen a scene like that in a television show in a long time. And it was House of the Dragon that delivered this high gravity scene. Do you remember that episode I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm bringing it all back. It's been so long because I intended to watch it all and then I did. So I mean, it may be some way that's good because I think most people who probably watch season 2 did not like binge watch season 1 immediately before, and then I meant to do all that, So I did watch it kind of like a normie, so to say. And it's still, right. And I was watching the recaps and things like that because I'm. What is it? I was asking myself, what is it that makes this so fantastic? Like, why are we responding so positively to this show? And I think
the writing.
Well, but I was going to go a level deeper than that, and I was going to say respect. Like, this is a show that clearly has a tremendous amount of respect for Westeros and the Song of Ice and Fire, and everything that this is. Like, it seems like there was a very conscious decision that, like, what we're going to do? We're going to, with this whole show, have some serious respect for the source material that we are trying to represent on screen. And I feel like that comes across. And I think that may be very much key to this.
Well, not only, and Heath, you're totally right. That this show, House of Dragon, and we're going back to season 1 just to kind of recap it, but respected the source material and elevated it, I would argue. It elevated that source material because I read the source material. It was the Blood. Shoot, I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, it's almost like the Silmarillion, where right. It's just a recap of all the histories of Westeros, and I've read it, and it's captivating. It is actually really a fun read because he goes through eras and eras and eras, and you get to know there's Baratheons and Targaryens, and they all have the same names, and it doesn't matter. You're still captivated by it, and this show brought those people to life. And you just got a sense that they were not drafting off of the characters from Game of Thrones. Like when they said Baratheon, it had nothing to do with Robert Baratheon. This was a new Baratheon, and this guy had his own center of gravity. This guy had his own personality. And then you have all these Targaryens, and none of these guys reminded you of Daenerys or any of the Targaryens in Game of Thrones. So this was like a complete reset. And it didn't matter. The characters were so compelling. The actors were so convincing. And the dialogue was so well written that you didn't care that it was a total reset. And these characters just all automatically existed on their own.
Yeah. James Bacon says also, this is a fantastic point, James. James says, it also appears to respect the audience. It isn't wasting our time. That's another fantastic point. It is respecting the source material, and we're talking about respect here. It is respecting the source material, and it is definitely, I would say, respecting the audience. Yes, I agree.
100%.
Yes.
Respecting, and you know what? respecting the audience matters. I learned myself as a writer, I think there's some fantasy as a writer early that it's all you. Oh, I've got all these great ideas. Nuh-uh. There's a relationship between you and the reader, and your job is to bring all of your creative energy and power and deliver something to a group of people that are reading your stuff in a way that's going to satisfy them. And that's a relationship between the writer and the reader. And it's funny because I saw one of James Bacon's videos. He was talking about the adversarial relationship between a GM or a dungeon master and like the game players. It's like that as a writer. You are going to piss off the readers, but you're going to do it in a way that matters. You're going to do it in a way that's honest to storytelling as on the writing side. So you have to be one up on the reader. You have to misdirect them. You have to do all these things and deliver. Anyway, I don't want to get too far off on that tangent, but the point is House of the Dragon does that. And they did it in the way that we all loved when they were doing this to us with Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Sable Phoenix is here too. I hope I don't know if you watched the episode or not, Sable. We're not doing spoilers here. We're not doing. I think it's a good way. No spoilers here, because if you haven't watched the episode, you need to. Especially, if you're a fan of this TV show. But yes. Because I was doing the same thing. I went out. I went to work for a few hours. Then I went over to visit my father for Father's Day, and I was like, I completely didn't even I didn't even realize this was the House of the Dragon Day, and I didn't organize, and I was like, screw it, I'm just going live anyway. So we just did it. Bacon says, "Oh, you must respect the audience. They agree to suspend disbelief, and you agree to not break the internal logic of your world." Yes. Okay. Now, I feel like that too. Now, because I felt like internal logic was starting to be broken at the end of the Game of Thrones. Right. There was that here. Right. I haven't got that yet. Right. Don't do that.
Well, there's too much. And anytime, and this is what's going wrong with Lucasfilm and a lot of these other IPs. You have a creator, or not even a creator, a successor to the creator, who is just insisting on their story in the way where there is no relationship. There's no real relationship between the writers or the storytellers and the audience. And we feel that as the audience. We feel that this creator or this show, they're not investing in us. It is like a toxic relationship. Like, they don't care about us. And then if we're questioning it, they pounce on us. We've all dated somebody like that, right? We're like, I don't know, I feel a little like, shut up, you. If you have a bad partner, that's a bad relationship. And that's really where Hollywood is right now. We're the creator, you're the nobody, and we're going to tell you what the story is, and you're going to like it. And if you don't, it probably means that you're a person of low character. And
so why? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't feel that way when I watch House of the Dragon.
Right.
Now.
So
when I'm watching House of the
why
Dragon,
are they able to get this done right? This is a series that's able to get this done correctly in a world where it seems like they just can't. And this one does. So it proves it can be done.
And House of the Dragon has diverse characters.
It has all of that.
They're doing all the things that, like, let's say Acolyte is trying to do. And yet this show pisses off nobody, is embraced by the exact same fandom that is likely to watch the Acolyte. And we love it.
And we all love it.
We love it. We love it. We can't get enough of it. And I felt that way tonight. I was so excited watching the first episode of season 2.
I love loving TV and movies. And if you're just coming in, now we have 90 people watching. So if you're coming in,
welcome everybody.
Here. We're not doing spoilers. You need to watch the show. We're not doing any spoilers. We'll talk later, perhaps on spoilers, some of that. But this is a show. I forget where I was just going with that. But this is a show that we all love. And I was saying that I love loving movies, and I love loving television. I love those things. So it's not like that, when I created this channel and stuff like that, and we were talking about, the positivity and positive, I never wanted to be caught up in a situation which you hear people talk about where they're like, oh, you have to go watch something that you hate because we want to see you react to it. No, I never wanted to do that. I never wanted to do that. But that's one of the reasons why when I showed up tonight, I was like, you know what? I am going live. I'm just going live if I have to be live by myself, because I loved this show. And I was anticipating, I mean, it wasn't a guarantee. I mean, I could have watched this episode and been like, oh, okay, that actually sucked, in which case I would say. But I mean, I had loved everything they had done. I was so excited about watching TV, which is not something that I often get. I mean, this was one of the episodes where I was like, I cannot wait. I am going to put everything on hold. I went and got my favorite beer, and I was like, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to watch this episode on full screen, no distractions, whatever. I mean, I did have some notes that I took, which we won't do because they're spoilers and stuff like that. So we won't do that. But, I did take a few notes, but I mean, by and large, I mean, I was like, all right, I'm just going to watch this. And I miss that so much.
Man, I'm right there with you, Heath. And, it's rare these days that when I sit back to enjoy a show and there's that moment where you realize I am enjoying the show.
Yeah.
I sat down to enjoy a show. I am enjoying it. And then you drift off. Then you're just like sucked in. And I remember and this show hits the ground running, by the way. No spoilers.
It does.
Yeah. Man, it hits the ground running. The drama is there. And by the way, and this isn't always a guarantee, the actors are already at a high vibration. They're elevated. Like there is a lot of emotion out of these actors. There's a lot of crises it's in their face. It's in their body language. It's in their dialogue. And I was like, a couple times I was like, oh my God, I'm so upset that I'm not 1,000,000% caught up. Like I need to go back and rewatch all of episode 1, which I will this week.
Will. Yeah, I'm going to do it too.
I will do it. It's worth it for me as a viewer. That's my job as the audience. It's a relationship between the creators and the audience. My job is to catch up so that I can fully appreciate what they're giving me here in season 2. So it's worth my time to actually go back. But the acting is like right there, right now. They're in your face, and you could just see like, damn, whatever's going on. Like I can't remember what's going on, but
this was dropping you right in the middle of the act. Right.
Yes.
That's why I was glad that I watched the last 20 minutes of the first season before I got in here. It's like, oh,
right.
Oh, well, yeah. Like, where are we?
Well,
oh my God.
Well, and I started to remember, by the way, like you won't be completely blind. Like you'll start to question if you don't watch all of season 1 and you just jump into season 2, you're going to be like, oh, like shit's going down now. Like what's going on? Like what happened? And you'll start to remember as you watch this episode. So by the end of the episode, I felt fairly in the know by the end of the episode, and that's going in cold. So I can't even imagine how good this episode is going to get once I rewatch season 1. But they're going like all that tension in season 1, all that tension where it's like, oh man, this is starting to get a little weird. Like there's like different factions forming, and this guy just kind of crossed the line. All that is like already started now. Like we're moving in season 2.
Well, and I when I was watching the behind the scenes, at the end of this show, I thought that it was interesting that they said when we shot season 1, we realized the first half of season 1 was the prologue. Then the second half of season 1 was act 1 of the war. And now we start at season 2, which is actually the start of act 2 of this war. And I thought that was a very interesting kind of perspective because we did. I know that we did have some people, because we got to change. If you haven't seen season 1, there was a change of actors because there's a time jump. And so they swapped actors after the time jump because
it was a conscious decision.
So you have but that's right. I think that's right. You have season 1 was a prologue. Then you start act 1, and now here we are on act 2 of the story. And they jumped right into it.
Right. And I don't know.
Believably, because I don't know how long it was since they had shot those scenes, but they jumped right into it, believably, as what you were saying.
Yeah. And I don't know, except maybe Game of Thrones itself, the first version of it. Watching a movie a show where the tension is built up so slowly and so decisively where even me as the viewer, I'm like, man, one little mistake from one of these groups is going to just throw this whole thing out the window. And you just sense like all these people are positioning, and like they're positioning in a way like that you can't position anymore. You're out of room, and they keep finding one more move. And I'm like, man, this is gonna blow apart at some point. And here we are in season 2. So I feel like I'm in good hands here with season 2. And I'm just gonna sit back and enjoy this ride. Okay, House of the Dragon is back, and they came out swinging, and they delivered, in my opinion.
And they're proving to everyone who is making a TV show, this is how it's done.
Yes,
freaking incredible.
Yeah, and it shows. In fact, my wife and I were watching it, and I said to her something similar, Heath. I was like, how do these guys know what they're doing? And even she, a lot of times, like me and my wife will sit there and we'll watch a show. Maybe she'll fall asleep. Maybe I'll fall asleep. Not happening tonight. Like, we were like 100% locked in. And I was asking her questions, and because my wife's really good at plot lines. So I'll be like, hey, what's going on with this guy? And she'll be like, oh, because this. So we were piecing it together while watching it. And I was like, man, I don't think I've done this. God, I don't remember the last time, except maybe last year, House of Dragon, where I was really hooked into a show like that, where I needed to understand every little thing just because I wanted to.
Here's a really a question from Sable. Let's see this, because this is probably going to require some expounding upon. So I guess this means that Sable has not seen it. But Sable says, "Is it as nihilistic as Game of Thrones?"
Here's my answer, and feel free to disagree or modify it or whatever. I think yes, in the sense of power itself is nihilistic, and I think Game of Thrones tapped into that nihilism in the sense of, it's a Game of Thrones, which what it's really saying, it's a game of power. And Game of Thrones knew how to deliver that. And they also delivered it with such great characters. Like, each character had their own universe they brought into this game. I think House of Dragons, or the House of the Dragon, absolutely taps into that power vacuum nihilism with great characters. So I think the great characters spares it a little bit of the emptiness that nihilism can bring to a story. In fact, very much spare it, because you get hooked into the characters. But I would say yes. What do you think, Heath? I mean, do you agree that it is kind of like the same dynamic there?
I'm thinking about this because Game of Thrones is the name of the first book, but also the TV show. So is it as nihilistic as Game of Thrones? Because it's possible I think it's very possible that the message of the TV show is different than the message that George R. Martin was trying to tell in the novels. That's possible. We don't know because we don't have all of that. But Sable also says, I can't stand Game of Thrones because it seems George R. R. Martin is obsessed with punishing anyone who acts honorably. Okay. Now, I didn't think that. So if we see that, are we talking about nihilism, and we're talking about the punishing of those who act honorably? Okay, Sable actually just sent something else in. And Sable also says, well, a Song of Ice and Fire would count too. I only read the first 2 books and then quit in disgust. Okay, so we have.
Oh, really?
Okay, so there we go. I don't know. I didn't get that the purpose was to punish people who acted honorably. I didn't get that was the message, that if you act honorably, in a vacuum. I mean, there are people who are like, okay, I'm acting honorably. We're talking about Ned Stark. We're talking about other things. I'd say, okay, this is honorable action in the absence of other knowledge. Like what's going on. Like when people talk about like Ned Stark, you should have seized control of the children. Like, that, because you can say like, okay, honorably, Ned Stark's like, no, I'm not going to go and send guards into children's bedrooms to grab them. Okay. But you know what? Because that's not the honorable thing to do. But on the other hand, you actually should have, because that would have sent. So I think it's about naivety. I think that's how I always took it. That like, okay, we've got that. Because I do see George R. R. Martin trying to comment on Tolkien. And I see that in his commentary, like when he's interviews and things like that.
Interviews,
So
yeah.
I very much try to understand A Song of Ice and Fire in the context of commentary on Tolkien, and to me, there are different kinds of stories. I enjoy both of them, but George R. R. Martin is trying to ask you: can Aragorn actually be an effective king? He just wandered around in the woods for decades, because he lived long. He just wanders around the woods, and then he shows up, and all of a sudden he's going to be the expert king of Gondor. Is that realistic?
What do you do when your enemies are playing dirty? How do you protect yourself?
Like, what does that mean? So I understand the questions he's trying to ask. I don't know that that's the answer, Sable, because I don't know the end of his story. Because we're not to the end of it. Now, I've got critiques of where he's going with the story, but I can't say what his message is trying to be, because we're not to the end of it. And we may never actually be the end of it. We may never.
Well, I'll say this.
You may never.
I think that power, we've all heard Lord Acton's famous phrase, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? That's a famous quote. Power itself is nihilistic in its logic, because what you must do to exhibit or exert or wield power often is going to fly in the face of any sort of moral code. And so what I think George R. R. Martin is attempting with all of his books, and by the way, I have read all 5 of his books. My favorite being the second. I think it's A Clash of Swords. Boy, I'm actually forgetting. And they're all good books. What? A Storm of Swords. Yeah, that was my favorite one. But all of them are good. I've read all of them. And George R. R. Martin appears to be saying, it's almost like, I'll say that it's like this. J.R.R. Tolkien dealt with the nihilism of power by symbolizing it in a ring. Whoever touched the ring would begin to lose their sense of moral code. They would lose all sense of anything else but the ring, which is a great symbol for power, right? Even Frodo fails in Lord of the Rings. He does not throw the ring into Mount Doom. There's the nihilism of the ring. What George R. R. Martin does is he removes the symbolism and says, here's these characters. They're all cunning, and they're all going to be circling the gravitational well of power, of the nihilism of power, and we're going to see how each one deals with it. And yes, some of the characters who are like, I will behave honorably. Well, that may or may not actually solve the power problem, as we saw with Ned Stark and some of the other characters. Yeah. So in that sense, it's nihilistic, but I think it's also a good demonstration of this is power. This is how it works. This is what people do.
I'm hesitant to say it's nihilistic because I don't know the whole story. But
I think power is nihilistic.
We got a new guest coming in, but I want to say that Bacon Gaming says Martin chronically misunderstands Tolkien. His takes are garbage. That could be true.
That could be true. Yeah.
Let me not comment on that directly, but I'm saying that could be true, that his takes are no good, but that still doesn't stop me from understanding what his critiques are, like that he has these certain things that he wants to address and that he's trying to do them in his world. So maybe he does misunderstand, but he has certain things that he wants to do on the other side, and so we're trying to do them. You know who we've got here?
Also doesn't, real quick, it also doesn't take away that he is still writing good stuff.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
So, we have another person here. I just sent out links, and here we have. Guess who has been on YouTube for 8 years and had an 8-year celebratory live stream earlier today? It's Retro Nerd Girl.
Hey! Retro, what's up? Oh, I'm just having fun here, listening to you guys, and I just finished watching the show, so I'm like, okay. Let's chat.
So you did watch it. You did watch the show.
Yeah. It's really good. I mean, what a difference it is from some of the other things. Oh, hi. Hi, James Bacon. Hi, Sable Phoenix. Hi, everybody.
Yeah, Retro today celebrated her 8-year anniversary on YouTube and her 200th episode simultaneously. So it's a big day for Retro Nerd Girl today.
Big day for Retro. Yes. So So we're not doing spoilers here, Retro. We decided not to do spoilers. We're not. But you enjoy. What did you think of it? You enjoyed it. What did you think? Tell us your opinion, Retro.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, my only critique of the whole thing is maybe it had something to do with my visual ability, but everything seemed really dark. I was like, I was doing a lot of this, like, okay, what just happened? But so it's really shot dark. But other than
Okay.
that, it is a very fully realized world, and they are sticking to the rules of that world, and that's part of the reason why I like it so much. And the characters are just so juicy. You learn so much about them. You learn about what they know and how they're responding to each other, and there is a lot of treachery and secret things that are going on with people on the same side, that people who are even on the same team. They're not all on the same page, but to some degree they're working together. It's just wonderful. Like, you have all these different characters with their own personal motivations, and those characters. You understand what they're after. So I think that's one thing I'm loving about this show. I can't
It's
say
funny
that about all the others.
you say that a lot of the sets were dark, and now that you say it, I can see what you're saying.
Oh yeah.
But I will add that I remarked out loud several times that I thought the cinematography was incredible. Like, even in a lot of dark
Yeah.
scenes, like, you'd have like a focal point of light, like an archway with silhouettes in it of people standing there, or a torch or something. The visuals I thought were rather amazing. They all look like paintings, and to your point, Retro, a fully realized world. There was a scene, and this is not a spoiler because I'm just painting a picture. There's a scene of two knights, and the camera's behind them, and they're clad in like green and gray armor and tunics, and the camera's behind them, and they're riding in, and they go under a portcullis and into this courtyard, and up above you could see like a hazy version of the turrets and towers, and I was like, wow. I was like, that looks more realistic than historical fiction movies I've watched, and this is fantasy, and it looks so believable and so beautiful and so medieval that I found myself just falling in love with the world again.
Yeah, it is definitely beautiful. Like, anytime there's a body of water, it looks so good. Like, it looks fantastic. The show looks really great. I think for me, a lot of the times it's not so much how it looks, because usually nowadays the productions really are on track. It's usually the writing, and they just have they understand what the characters are. I could actually tell you what each character's motivation is in this. And a lot of shows I can't tell you because I don't know.
Well, and it flip-flops. One minute, like, they're saying this, and then the next minute they're doing the exact opposite of what they just said they would never do. And it's like, well, now I have no read on this character, because they're going to do whatever they want to, and there doesn't seem to be any guiding principle behind it.
Yeah, and I think it's because they want to surprise you with what the character really wants. But I think in a show like this, I was surprised at least 2 or 3 times during this episode. And boy, does it end on like a doozy, because I was like, oh God. I was just, I'm not going to give anything away, but I was very, very affected by it. And even the acting was very interesting. I'm really interested in the princess characters, or now she's queen.
Both of them are pretty good.
Yeah, just incredible. I love all the characters. It's wonderful.
Scott, have a good one. Enjoy the episode.
Go and enjoy the episode, Scott. Go and watch the episode. We'll talk later. Yeah.
I was going to ask you guys. Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that Thanos here. Can you wait? Scott says, "Can you post the link to YouTube stream on X? I could not for the life of me find it." Well, let me just post it in the comments. Okay, wait a minute. So what I'll do is I'll just post, here in the comments, YouTube, Table Talk on YouTube. There's the YouTube stream right there. I just posted in the comments, so everybody should see that on all the different platforms right there. Let's see. Discord. Let me put the Discord link too. So I'll put the Discord link out there for the Ravenkeep Discord. I almost started the locals, but I didn't have time.
And Retro gave a beautiful shout out to Table Talk today on her live stream. And so to you personally, she was thanking everybody that has contributed to her 8-year journey, which is ongoing. And she had a lot of good things to say about both you and Table Talk. So,
which means
just passing that on.
Yeah.
Which at this very moment, let me find Retro's YouTube channel because we need to post Retro's YouTube.
Thank
If
you.
you're not following,
it was a really cool 8-year celebration. It was like the way she wanted it. She wanted a little bit more low key and just she expressed a lot of gratitude to a lot of people, and there was a lot of cool people in the chat, and it was a nice, easy celebration. It was awesome.
Thank you. Yes, that's exactly how I wanted it to. I just wanted it to really thank everybody. And yes, Heath, your channels, they've been just so wonderful to me. And it's just been a pleasure to know you. And I know we have a mutual friend, RM. I also thanked her as well because she's not doing videos right now, and from what I heard, she is going to come back. And
she's got like some job stuff going on, like a great job or something like that.
Yes.
I heard that she's been working.
Yes, and so I'm really happy for her, and I can't wait for her to come back. So I said that maybe we should. Yes. So I hopefully maybe we'll throw a party for her when she comes back.
I would love to do that. I would love to do that.
Yes, and let her know she's loved.
Coming in from Twitch says they have truly come a long way from Game of Thrones season 1, and I would say that's absolutely true. That was one of the comments I actually had, that like when but you can't really help this, that like when they return to Winterfell, they return to Winterfell, as it is in Game of Thrones. And I felt like the original, because I mean, that was one of the first sites that you had to be, one of the
settings you got used to. Yeah.
And arguably, I believe Winterfell was done wrong in that it should have been much more grand. I call it like Jabba the Hutt's Winterfell.
Really?
Because with like the circles and stuff like that. Like I always envisioned Winterfell being much more grand and things, like especially with like the squat roofs, things like if you're in an environment with lots of snow, you wouldn't have a real flat looking roof on top of this. I mean, you'd have like really deep
gables.
Yeah. So I mean, I had envisioned when I was reading the books Winterfell being much more grand than that, and so I always felt that Winterfell wasn't done the credit that it should have been done. But on the other hand, that is world consistency now. Okay, that was how, because they didn't have the budget in season 1. I mean, season 1 of the first Game of Thrones, I mean, that was not gigantic budget. I mean, that was so they were able, and so they preserved the consistency of the appearance of Winterfell from here. So even though I'm like, man, Winterfell, if you had a higher budget, man, that really should look much more impressive than that. They preserve it, and that's respect to what's gone before. They preserve what had been shown, and then they replicate it so you know where you are. So that's part of filmmaking, I think.
Mm-hmm. And they do something that I really appreciate. This is a prequel show.
Mm-hmm.
They're not so self-aware that Game of Thrones is going to come one day, that they're kind of like tipping you off that the modern filmmakers are like reverential to the future. Like when you walk into Winterfell in like this episode or any other episode of House of the Dragon, it's just Winterfell. It's Winterfell in this age, and it cares nothing about the future of what happens here. It doesn't care about the future Starks. It only focuses on these characters in this time. So there's no self-awareness of the future of Game of Thrones, and I appreciate that personally.
Yeah. I don't. I have to admit, I did not see the original Game of Thrones. And
really?
No, but I do.
Oh, really?
Know
Really?
Yeah, but I do know a lot of the story because, nerds on the internet, we like talking to each other. So I'm like, okay, tell me all about Game of Thrones. And so, of course, some people have shared their information about that. But also, one thing that I've noticed about the show is the consistency of trying to keep things like the Game of Thrones in the background, but not like you're saying, like give you all those like, oh, this character is this and this is the, there
Yeah.
hasn't been a whole bunch of that um, to kind of distract you from the actual story because you really want to know what's going to happen to these characters here. And
Yes.
I I actually know about the story um, that was already written about this entire period. And it is so good. And I know that the show is going to change things just a little because,
Oh, really?
yeah, they are going to change some things and not do it exactly as it was written. But so far, what they've been writing is so cohesive to a good story. So,
Oh, yeah.
you don't mind any little changes when they're actually doing a good job with it.
Yeah. And the story itself is good.
Oh, it's
You know, when I read the
I
book,
can't wait.
yeah, when I read the book, which reads more like a history book than a fictional narrative,
Right, right.
uh,
Yeah.
you can't help but go, "Oh my God, like the wheels are coming off of this society. Like these people are crazy. Everyone is so like hardcore." So like
Yeah.
I know that and because of the way they've done season one, the way season two has started, I'm like, I think we're gonna see this crazy power game with the Targaryens, and it's crazy. So it's probably going to be really good.
Yeah.
I have
I
Oh,
was going to
it's
ask
so
you guys too.
fantastic, and I'm just loving all the characters. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and
I'm
this is
just
a
loving
small thing.
everybody so far. It's just been so good.
So Matt Smith really chews up the scenes when he's in. I looked at my wife. I was like, this guy's already iconic in this role. Like when he's on screen, they had this one shot of him like on a profile and his blonde hair and everything, and I was like, dude, this guy's like already cementing himself in like as an iconic character because he's just so distinctive and so good. So I thought he was great coming back into this role.
Oh,
Oh
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's a
Well, I
scene
mean, I don't
stealer.
know if I can define an actor who did not do that. I mean, an actor who was not great at coming back into the roles? I don't know
Agreed.
who that would be.
Yeah, everyone is incredible. Everybody is
Yes.
incredible. He's though when he's on screen, you just ask, okay, can we get more of this character? Can we just
He
get
just
more?
chews up
But
the
it's not like,
screen.
yeah, but when he goes away, you're still invested in the whole story. It's not like you're like, oh, everything is boring until you get to him. He's
There,
still great, but the rest of the show is still fantastic too.
there was a scene of just him walking across the screen in silence and everybody watching him. And I was like, dude, that you cannot take for granted as a filmmaker. Like you, as the viewer, are captivated and just nothing is being said. They're just watching it. Remember that scene in Empire Strikes Back where Vader walks by on the Star Destroyer and all the guys are
Yes.
looking up at him? and that reaction to him is what sells the gravitas of the character. I felt like I got a little bit of that in a certain scene with him in this,
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah, it talks
and
about even children actors. That's a great point. I didn't even think to call that out
absolutely.
because ordinarily that's kind of like, okay, we've got children actors here. But, that's a great point that I didn't actually even think to call out or think about, oh, well, we had kids here. That's a great point, Thanos, that I didn't even think about that with regard to the children actors. And that says something. But I mean, it didn't even cross my mind because ordinarily, like you got a show or a movie, and you got kid actors, and then you're like, well, okay, you recognize that it didn't work, but that's just goes to working with children or something like that. I didn't even think about that when watching this show. So that
And-
says
and-
something.
And you're not supposed to.
Wow.
And you're not supposed to
Well,
because
when it's done right,
that's
you're not supposed to.
yeah. Absolutely. And that is exactly how I felt about every moment was so intriguing too. Like even when things, got really quiet and somebody sat down to have a glass of wine, you're like, okay, what are you gonna say? I'm leaning forward into watching the show. So that there's a lot to be said for that. And I think it's writing, it's setting the mood as a director. It's also the ambiance of setting the physical space as well. Because even though I'm saying, oh yeah, it's dark, I can hardly see, but I'm intrigued at what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
No, I mean, how do we get more of this? I mean, I would love for this to be my reaction to tons of shows on TV. I mean, I would love
Yeah, I wish
that.
yeah, like when I'm watching, like The Acolyte. I don't even want to say it, but like,
Have you
like there's
watched
so
it,
many.
Doug?
What's that?
Did you watch The Acolyte?
I watched the first episode and
Okay, I have not watched it.
I was
yet.
out.
I did.
I
I
was
have
out.
watched it.
You
I
have
was
watched
out.
it, Retro?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and my point is, and I'm sure Retro, I'm assuming Retro will agree. I'll let her speak for herself, but
Mhm.
my thought was like, I'm out of it so often. There's so many times where my mind is like questioning something, or like Heath, you just said you weren't even aware that there were child actors in this because you were so invested. That was the exact opposite experience of The Acolyte. I was so
Opposite.
aware of
Yes.
every decision that was made. I was like, who's doing the set design? Who did the costumes here? Who wrote this dialogue? I couldn't get invested in any second of that
Yes.
show. Whereas
You're
this
so
was
right.
the flip flop of that, where it was
Mhm.
where all the creators are camouflaged. They're all hidden behind the story itself, and the characters are coming to the forefront again. And I'm like, this is why I fell in love with movies. This is why I fell in love with these kinds of shows, and why I read all these books. This is why we're on YouTube, talking about this, because this is what we love. This kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Oh no, Doug.
Sorry, I almost ruined it.
Like we might, I intentionally went, like we were talking about Brianna's book when the Acolyte came out, and I have made a deliberate decision to not make this channel. I don't want to make this is not a hate channel. This is not.
Mhm.
oh yeah.
So it's like I saw the preview, like the trailer to the Acolyte. I forgot that it was even coming out. And then I saw the trailer and I was like, that does not interest me at whatever. Like, should we cover it? I mean, it might be worth talking about in the broader scope, but I mean, there's no way
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
I was going to watch that. But but that's the difference here. That when I saw that, oh my God, I forgot that this is actually the House of the Dragon weekend, even though it's Father's Day and I was doing things. I was like,
Yeah.
I got to talk about it. We got to
Yeah.
be online to talk about it.
Yeah, this is definitely the opposite experience of what I had watching that show. Because that show, again, you've already said pretty much everything I'm feeling about it, which is bad directing, bad writing first, bad
Oh yeah.
editing, even bad editing. Like to know when to cut when your actor has nothing left to say. You gotta cut away, you know?
It's true. It's true.
You've got,
It actually makes you aware of how good editors can be, because suddenly you're watching a show and you're like, oh my God, they should cut this. And then you're like, that's what editors do.
That's
And
what
then
it
you
is.
watch another show and you're like, oh my God, this editor is all over it. This is a good
Yeah.
editor.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with a good editor, you don't know that something is edited until you're like, wow, that was an interesting like transition or moment, and it. But if it's bad editing, they just let too many things stay on the table that probably needs to go. Which is, after actors have done their thing, sometimes the camera might just stay on them for just a few seconds too long. And we had a lot of that in the Acolyte. We had a lot of characters with, I don't know what their motivations were. We're still trying to figure out what the Jedi were doing there, and if they were good Jedi or bad Jedi. You shouldn't have those questions. You should know who your characters are. Like I was saying, in this show, just by the first episode, I know what all the characters are after and what they want. I know there's sacred fire.
Yes, yes, yes.
I'm not wondering
true.
about it. I'm not even the smaller characters, the henchmen and the assassins. I know exactly what they're after and what's important to
Yes.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, you know exactly how reliable they are. You know exactly when they're hooked on something or when they agree to do a task. And I don't need to be handheld. I could just sit back and watch these characters play out, and then the guesswork comes in. Are these guys gonna blow it? Like what's gonna happen here? So
Yeah.
it's good writing in House of the Dragon. Good writing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it really is.
I don't know. Maybe I should look at the Acolyte. I don't know. It's just like Thanos on Twitch says, which is actually our most active Twitch person ever. I think. All right, so glad to have you here. I think the review bombing has a major negative impact on the Acolyte. It isn't a great TV show, I'll admit, but isn't horrible either. I mean, maybe.
No.
So I mean, I haven't watched this. Why I don't say things? I just was like, what do I want to watch this? Like, I watched the trailer and I thought that I was like, that looks completely uninteresting to me.
Yeah.
Well,
So what do
I have to say, is it being review bombed? Because I only hear
Some
that
people are doing
when it's
that.
negative.
Yes.
Because
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
There are some bad actors out there that are doing that. But that doesn't mean that anybody who has, a negative thing to say is doing it. One thing positively I'll say about the show is that if it wasn't Star Wars, it could be intriguing. It could be very intriguing. And it's just that what we know about Star Wars, we're like, okay, well, this is definitely not congruent at all, even though it's set 100 years prior to the prequels. And so there's a lot of things that just make you wonder, okay, are we in the same universe? And so if it was just the Acolyte as a story idea about some people on a different planet and this is their world, I think it would be kind of cool. It would be really cool. But as a Star Wars property, it's really off base.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe
Yeah.
I should watch it, and then that way we can have a conversation about it. I don't know.
I mean, we could, but as far as the review bombing goes,
we don't need to go episode by episode.
I don't think so.
No, it's at 15. My point is
watch it. Yeah.
The audience score is 15%. So clearly, review bombing or not, this show is being rejected by the vast majority of Star Wars fans, and the same fandom did not review bomb Andor. Even Ahsoka was like 60 something. Well, my point is
actually good.
It's the same fandom, so they're only review bombing shows that seem to suck. And to me, it's not review bombing so much as it is just a bad show.
Retro. Go ahead, Retro.
Well, no, I mean there are some people who have taken it a little bit too far, and they have done that. And they were so bad that they went after this other movie called The Acolyte that was done, I think it was in 2017. So and they review bombed that too. So there are some bad actors out there, but on the most part, people who are saying there's something wrong with this show have valid points, and a lot of people aren't bringing up some of the points that maybe the showrunners and the actors want them to talk about and say. They're not really actually listening to the real problems with it, which is writing and also setting up some real motivations for characters and also just the general flow of the storytelling. It is just completely off, and it's not in an intriguing way where you have some things that are out of order and you need to uncover them. There are too many mystery boxes, and we just don't. It's not fulfilling at all.
Well, I'll consider how to approach this on this channel.
Yeah. Well, and time will tell. Time will tell.
That's true. Right.
I always tell myself
the initial react. I know we're doing an initial reaction to the House of the Dragon season 2, so who knows how this will hold up over the coming years. So I mean, I understand that, but I mean, you're right. In spite of that, because I'm actually, despite what we're doing here tonight, like that. Like, okay, this just finished. What do you think about it? Especially if you're going to tweet it. Like, Doug, you just watched this TV show. You got
Loved it.
144 characters. What is your initial thing, like off the top of your head? No. Don't think about it. Don't go look anything up. Don't go reference anything. No. I'm talking about what is your first 144 character response to whatever. How valuable is that? I mean,
Yeah.
questionable at best, I think. You know,
Well, I would
but it
say
is
House
for
of the Dragon
everybody.
is back.
Yeah, but
And it's a great show, and it's worth your time, and you're gonna get sucked in like the rest of us if you start watching it.
Yes, it's
That
it's
was
really
132.
delightful.
So
Yes, it's
our
really
idea is you
delightful.
should go watch it. I mean, that sounds like where we're coming. Like, if you haven't watched it yet and you're watching this, like, go watch House of the Dragon if you like
Yeah.
fantasy.
I love that Retro came on to join us.
I
This is
don't
awesome.
know. Is anybody who's watching? Should we do this again? Like, should we do this for this? I don't even know how many episodes this is. Like, this completely snuck up on me. Like, how many episodes of season 2 are there? Maybe we should. I mean,
Oh,
I'm going to
my
watch them on
goodness.
Sunday nights. I'm going to watch these things on Sunday night.
Oh, now I'm gonna be like religious on my Sundays. Like I can't wait because it's like the next episode of House of the Dragon is coming on, and I'm gonna be there.
And I
for it.
love it. I
Yeah.
love looking forward to stuff so much. Wait, what does BGD say? BGD says the Acolyte has some meaningful artistic narrative problems at a time when Disney really can't afford for the health and value of the
Totally.
franchise. Hate based on politics, society is layered on top.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
remember what I said? There's a relationship between the storyteller and the audience. And the relationship that modern storytellers at Lucasfilm seem to want is a one-way street. I tell you what this relationship's going to be, and you're going to like it. And all of us know that that's not a good relationship. Like that's not how it works. Like that's like we're breaking up. Like I don't want that. I'm part of the relationship too, you know. So the audience matters. House of Dragon gets it. Lucasfilm doesn't right now, and time will always favor the side that gets it. So
Yeah,
and I trust
Yeah.
time to work its magic.
I'm so glad that we
Yeah,
have.
and
this
I
show.
think yes, oh yeah, and it's a great it's a great example. Like Hollywood, all of you guys out there, do this, do this, follow in the footsteps
This is
of
it.
this show, because
Yes.
I think they need examples of what is actually working with the public right now. And one thing I have to say, and it may be just a Disney problem all across the board, is they have some sort of formulation that they're doing with their TV shows that's just not working out. It's just not working out, and they need to really evaluate how to break it up and just start all over again, because even the MCU shows were just horrible, and I
Oh,
stuck
God.
in there with
Oh.
them, especially She-Hulk. That was one that was just sort of like, what? And a Secret Invasion. That was a big waste of my time. I was so upset that I watched those.
Do you guys know what we watched for Father's Day? And we didn't watch it today. We watched it Friday. It was kind of like Father's Day weekend. Iron Man. We watched Iron Man.
really?
Ooh.
And you know what? And it was so good. And I at some point early on when Tony Stark is like figuring stuff out in his garage, when he's like trying to do, and I was like, boys, because both of my sons were with me, I was like, this is where it all started. This is the
Yeah.
first of 23 films, and this movie is excellent today in 2024.
Yes,
Tony,
and
they got his character right in the first scene, right in the first page of that script. Everything was right. They didn't mess it up. He has the the arc reactor, like it's all there in 2008 embedded in that film. And I was like, what great stuff. What happened? What happened to
well,
this?
I'll say this. That was when Paramount Pictures was heading things up with the they and of course like a year later, Disney bought up all of the MCU franchise and took it on, and they
Wow.
were able to continue things for a while. But yeah, those initial movies, like the Thor movies and the Iron Man movie, that was over at Paramount.
Wow. I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Really?
Yeah, I found out recently too when I did a deep dive on Paramount movies. So yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, I will say, and I know we're a little off topic, but
Well,
I loved all to some extent. To some extent, I really did enjoy all 23 films
Yeah.
ending with Endgame. I thought that was a masterpiece of filmmaking for that lasted, a decade. And then they were like lost all of their ability to do anything right, like all at once. It was so bizarre. So anyway, I think,
Yeah.
and I think that's why it might even be why we're here tonight. My appreciation for excellent storytelling, I felt rewarded tonight watching the
Oh,
show that
yes.
knew what they were doing.
well,
Mhm.
You know,
I mean, I guess we could talk about where do we go from here. I mean, I'm going to be watching The House of the Dragon every Sunday, so
Yeah.
so we could do like, I mean, I'm kind of interested in doing like a spoiler-free reaction, on Sundays. Doesn't mean, but I'm kind of thinking maybe I should do that. But we were talking about, but there's room for further critique if you go into spoilers and what kind of things like that. But then also like we're talking about the Acolyte. Like I don't feel like I had actually managed to purge my YouTube feed of basically all Star Wars because I didn't know that the Acolyte was coming out. I
That's
didn't know
not
the
easy.
Acolyte was coming out. Yeah. I didn't know the Acolyte was coming out until my brother texted me like the day before or something and said, hey, I just saw that Carrie Ann Moss was going to be in a Star Wars series. I'd probably love to watch that. I mean, that I was like, oh, wait, hold on. Wait, what was that? Oh, that's the Acolyte. Oh, that's like coming out
Trinity.
tomorrow. Like I didn't even notice, and then I watched the trailer and I was like, oh, that does not look interesting to me at all. And I just do not have the interest to like say, to do what so many YouTube channels are doing. It's like, whether you like, it seems like so much hate that's like, okay, let's just hate everything that is Star Wars, like immediately and do like 18 hours on that. Like, I mean, that is not what this channel was supposed to be about.
Right.
If there are legitimate things to be said about the Acolyte, and like I haven't watched it yet, so I don't know. I would watch it if we're going to talk about it. Then I would want to watch it, and then we could have an episode, on what we think about it, whether it's good, bad, indifferent. I don't know. But I just do not feel the need to talk about how much I hate Star Wars for 70 hours. I mean, that's just not a thing. That is.
Well, and after the kids went to bed on Friday night, I watched Empire Strikes Back, and I felt like I purged all the Acolyte that was like staining my eyes. Like I was watching Badass like attack the Rebel base again. I was like, this is still there for me.
Oh, wait,
Yes,
let me tell you a story about Star Wars that was going on. Like, this is reaching way back, and it was like driving me crazy. This is reaching way back. The return of Luke Skywalker and the Mandalorian, which is the end of Mandalorian season 2. Well, my brother has been watching Star Wars with the episodes with my nephews, but they are very slow about it. I mean, they are very slow. And so he was like, oh, yeah, we're watching The Mandalorian. But I mean, they take a long time to watch episodes. And so I was like, I'm not going to spoil anything. Like, I am waiting for him to get to the return of Luke Skywalker and, to talk about this, with him and the nephews and things like that. But for years and years and years, it's, however many years it's been, like, no, we're still watching The Mandalorian. And then he told me like 3 days ago, he's like, we're 3 episodes away from being done with The Mandalorian. And there are 3 seasons of The Mandalorian now, of course, right? And I have not personally watched the 3rd season. I haven't watched a lot of Star Wars because I just gave up. But I was like, if he's 3 episodes from done with The Mandalorian, then he's seen the final episode of season 2. And I was like, so what did you think about the final episode of season 2? And he was like, huh? What are you talking about? He was like, oh, well, sometimes I don't watch all the episodes. Sometimes my wife watches the episodes with the boys, and I don't watch them all. And I was like,
moment.
What? I was like, what? You're talking about you have been through that? He was like, oh, yeah, I guess I guess she must have watched that one with the boys. I was like, she watched that one and she didn't
Oh
come
my
and get
God.
you or something like that. And he was like, oh yeah, I guess so. He was also like, sometimes we like watch an episode on, streaming and we forget to actually hit the stop button and then it just keeps playing. And then when we sit
He
down
missed the
again,
boat.
we don't really know what episodes we've watched and which ones we haven't. So
Then
maybe
you
we
Ah.
missed that one.
You missed
And
it.
he was like, let you talk to the nephews. And I was like, okay, nephews. So I was on live stream with like a FaceTime with them. I was like, so what happened? Because like trying to see if they watched it. I was like, what happened at the end of the Mandalorian season 2? And they were like, well, there was like, like some woman, or they had to come up with Moff Gideon. And I was like, well, Moff Gideon was there, but that really wasn't the big thing.
Sounds like a wrong episode.
It's like,
Yeah,
whatever. And I was like, didn't you watch Luke Skywalker? And they were like, oh my God, Luke Skywalker was in it. I was like, you guys go back and watch this episode. What are you doing? So
Boy, that
apparently,
was an event. That was an event.
I've been
Yeah.
like
I
holding
remember-
my tongue for years, and they had
And then they blow it.
right in an attempt to not spoil this for them, but they're like forgot to turn off the streaming service and like didn't realize they hadn't watched that episode or something. Oh my God!
Oh,
Next
man,
time
that's
I'll
like-
be more direct.
Oh wow. Yeah, you
Oh
can't
my
miss
gosh.
that. That was like a cultural moment.
You're right.
when
Yeah,
that
It
episode
yeah.
came
was,
out.
yeah.
And what's even crazier is Mandalorian season 3 is the first time in my life that I just stopped watching Star Wars. I didn't finish it.
Oh, really?
It was the episode before the Jack Black and Lizzo episode. So I never saw that episode. It was the episode right before that I watched it, and I was like, I didn't get mad. I didn't like put my foot down and say I protest. I just didn't care. And when the next episode came out, I never got around to watching it. Then I heard Jack Black and Lizzo were in it, and I was like, oh, I guess I
Not
didn't miss
needed.
much.
What
you know,
am I doing?
And it kept going, and I just didn't care. And I remember 2 weeks before that, my kids and I used to wake up early on school days. I'd wake them up an extra like 40 minutes early, and we'd come down and we'd watch Mando. We'd watch a season of Mando.
Mm.
Then I'd get them ready for school and all that, right? At some point, I think it was 2 weeks before I stopped watching, I turned it on, and I was like, hey, come on down. Let's watch the episode. And they were watching YouTube upstairs, and I heard them. They're like, we'll come back. We'll watch it later. And I was like, oh, they don't even care. They're not into it. Like, they don't want to watch Mando with Dad anymore. So I was like, man. And then I lost interest. So
Yeah.
they're
Well,
like,
even though my nephews had
put some
skipped
pieces
episodes,
on.
apparently, even though they've been skipping episodes and not really watching, my brother said that they've lost interest because it's not about the Mandalorian anymore. So, I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah.
they were trying to get him to the nephews to watch. I've got 3 younger nephews. And so he even said that, like, yeah, we were watching the Mandalorian. And that's when he said we were in season 3. But then he also said that they've lost interest.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
Well,
sad.
and that's not faked. Like, my kids, they're not protesting anything. They're not part of the culture war. They're completely ignorant of all that. They just don't care. They don't
And they
care to
just
watch
decided to
Mando.
not care.
Right.
Yeah.
It was not an
Right.
event. They sensed it before that this is an event. Everyone's into this. Like, kids at
Yeah.
school were talking about it even. And now no one is. And Mr. Beast is on, Dad. He posted this video a couple weeks ago. We want to catch up. Mando can wait. And I was like, wow, Mando's losing face-offs to the point where he's irrelevant. So,
Yeah.
you do it to yourself with bad writing and bad storytelling. You do it to yourself.
Well, all right. Maybe we should talk about that as a whole, because we do talk about that, but like as a whole. So maybe I don't know. I guess that means I have to. We talked about Ahsoka. We talked about Ahsoka because you loved Ahsoka, Doug, and also we did the Heroine's Labyrinth, the context of the Heroine's Labyrinth, and all of that.
I have faced the music on Ahsoka. I have apologized numerous times. I was very passionate because I thought I was sensing something, and you guys told me, Doug, it's adorable seeing you get worked up, but it's probably not going to happen.
So
And
is House,
you're all
is
right.
House of the Dragon all we have? I mean, what else should we be watching right now? And in the comments, let us know. Like, I mean, what else is going on? I mean, I feel like in my world, which is very limited, I mean, I got a lot of things going on, I mean, the House of the Dragon, I was like, oh my God, I got to watch. Like, I will stop everything. And I did today to make sure that I watched this, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what
I
else
mean,
what else is going on that's like that?
Well-
Arcane season 2 will be the same way about
Oh,
Arcane
yeah.
season 2. So it
Okay,
seems
yeah.
like House
I'm
of the
all in.
Dragon and Arcane, House of the Dragon and Arcane are carrying all of storytelling and television. I mean, that seems what it
And-
seems like to me.
And
There's
both stories feature a diverse range of characters. You know, it's got diversity, it's got representation. Both stories have all that. So you can do a good job. These other companies, these other storytellers, they're not doing a good job. So it all boils down to storytelling. It's not about what they say it's about. House of Dragon has diversity. Arcane has diversity. Bring it on. I love both of those shows.
See, BGD. BGD is saying Bad Batch is surprisingly sophisticated at times and quite
I like
dark.
Bad Batch.
Bacon says Bad Batch and Andor. See, I feel like I was in the situation with Andor because when did Andor come? It came out after. Was it after Kenobi?
yes.
Like, and
Was it?
I stopped watching Kenobi. That was it. Like, I watched Boba Fett because it was Boba Fett.
Oh,
and I
It was
like,
after
what
Boba
is
Fett.
this? And
Yeah,
then
it was
I
after
watched-
Boba Fett.
Oh, it was after Boba Fett, but I watched.
Mhm.
I think I did end up for some reason watching all of Boba Fett, and then Kenobi. I watched like 3 episodes, and I was like, I mean, I was upset with Boba Fett, but I watched it all for different reasons. But then with Kenobi, I like turned it off, and then Andor, and everybody says Andor was actually good.
Andor is
But
good.
But probably
Andor is
what
very
happened
good.
to a lot of people was what happened to me because I just got like this is terrible, this is terrible, this is terrible. So they probably didn't watch Andor like me,
And
you know,
Andor
because
is,
what had come before, so it was very difficult to get people back. I mean,
and I'll say
BGD is
this
saying go
about
watch
Andor.
Maybe we should do that. Maybe I should watch Andor, and also I got to watch Picard season 3, and we'll have an episode.
Oh, Picard season 3. So, and
Well, I have to
Retro,
do that too.
I know you have something to say. I just want to throw this in real quick.
Mhm.
Andor was really good, and there was one episode in particular that I thought was great. Just a great episode with Andy Serkis in it. I was blown away by how
yes.
good the episode. Yes, you know what I'm talking about? One Way
Yes.
Out. Great
Yeah.
episode. It was so
It
good.
was
I
so
couldn't believe
good.
it. I was
Yeah.
bowled over by it.
Yeah. One thing about Andor is I will warn you ahead of time. The first 2 episodes are they're snooze fests a little bit.
They're
If
slow.
you were gonna say it has a slow way of getting. By the time you get to season 3, you're like, what's this? And I'm not season 3, but episode 3. And then it really builds. It has a crescendo that's beautiful. And by the end, you're just sort of like, wow, this is Star Wars. It really feels great. And there are just certain things about the feeling of rebellion that they capture, and it's just incredible. And this is all set before Rogue One, all set before, of course, the original movie. So you get that flavor, like something's going on in the atmosphere, that we're building up to this, to people saying, heck no, we're not going to take it anymore, and fighting back, so
Yes.
it's the development of the rebellion. I think this season we're going to probably get more of that. It's really great.
I hope so. I'll even say this, Retro. As slow as the first 2 episodes were in Andor, they were still competently done. It was
Yeah,
slow,
exactly.
but I was like, I'm still here with you. I feel like they're taking their time and setting things up. It was well acted. Like I was willing. I was going to watch episode 3. Let's put it that way. Like I didn't care how slow it was. I was still going to follow along, and I was rewarded for doing so. So Andor was really good. And Heath, I know we've told you this a million times. Picard season 3.
I know. Okay,
Is,
so Picard season, guys, there's some stuff
I
I gotta
haven't
watch.
seen it yet.
Yeah.
So.
It's this little gem
Have you
that was
seen it,
thrown
Retro?
in.
Is that what you meant?
Yeah, I haven't seen it either. So
You have not? Okay, well maybe we should watch it. So, okay.
Oh, you got to
well,
watch it.
so-
It's so good. It's so good.
Well,
It'll shock you how good it is while you're watching it. You'll sit there and go, "Who the hell wrote this? Where did this come from? This is
That's good.
so on target, and it'll baffle you because it's good. Not like like House of the Dragon. Like we expect it to be good now. Picard season 3, you're not expecting it to be good, and so you're going to be baffled by how good it is. It's bizarre, and it's so consistently good.
Okay, we got to do it then.
Yeah.
So, okay, so this was our initial reaction, spoiler free. Like, we're talking about a bunch of things if you're just coming in, but
We're
this
talking
was
about
our
good
spoiler
writing.
free
We're
reaction
talking about
to
good
House of the
shows.
Dragon. I might, when I end the stream, I might just watch it again. Like,
I'm
I might
probably
turn
going to
it
watch
on.
it again.
Ooh,
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
So, all right. Hey, guys, thank you so much for being here. Doug and
Hey,
Retro.
thanks for the invite, man. This was a great
Yeah,
idea.
thank
All right,
you.
maybe we should do this. I mean, you don't have to be every time, but I'm thinking I might do a spoiler-free reaction on Sundays because I just love it. And hey, man, it's going on. It's good to do it. So, all right, and everybody who's been here in the chat, this has been amazing. Like we have 90 people watching right now. So this.
Oh
this
man, that's
has been
amazing.
amazing. So thank you to everybody. So yeah,
Wow.
maybe we should do like I like maybe we should do Andor. We should do a acolyte like in the round. I don't want to get into like episode by episode.
Well,
But, like,
we could,
what is
you know,
going on?
Heath,
We Picard
could
season 3.
we could have a discussion about like good versus bad storytelling.
Yeah. Why do
here's-
we love? I mean, like there are things we love. So why do we love
Why
this?
does
and
Andor
not
work?
love this? I mean, I don't know. And I don't know. I haven't
Yeah, why
watched
does
it.
Andor
I
work
could love it. I don't know.
and Acolyte not work? Why does House of Dragon work and Rings of Power fail?
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
yeah.
why
Right,
does
exactly.
Picard
Yeah,
season 1
exactly.
suck so bad, but
Exactly.
Picard season 3 is one of the best Star Treks we've seen since like Star Trek 6 on Discovered Country? Why?
Yeah.
Those are, you know, there's something happening. And I think people who love stories, and especially if you're trying to write, you have to answer those. You have to answer those questions. You have
It's
to task
true.
yourself with coming up with an answer
I-
as to why.
Those are the essential questions that I am most interested in. Like
Me
why?
too.
Like, exactly.
Mhm.
So BGD says you all make a great trio. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Binge watch Andor season 1 and talk about the whole season. So maybe that's what
Oh, that's a great
maybe
I would
idea.
if
totally
I subscribe
rewatch
to
it.
Disney Plus, it would be to like binge watch Andor and look at what's going on with Acolyte, and then
Yeah, 'cause
have something. to talk
Andor
about.
season
That's fine
2
with
is
that.
coming up.
Oh,
So
it's
that's
coming.
coming
Okay.
up
There's
soon.
coming Andor season 2. Oh,
So I think
Is that official?
yeah, I believe it in August, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. But it.
Oh,
Andor
that's
season
rumor.
oh,
two-
then maybe we should attack it. Oh my God, there's
Yeah.
so much stuff to do, man. I got so much things going on. I got so much TV to watch and movies to watch. Oh my God.
I
Well, it's
know,
our
right?
love. We love these
End
stories.
of 2004, BGD says. Okay.
Oh, at the end of
All right.
2004. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
And,
Well,
and
thank
you
you
asked,
so much.
and you
Go ahead,
and you
Rebecca.
also asked what's good out there. I did see a very intriguing animated show. It's called Blood of Zeus, and it's actually really good.
Blood of
There
Zeus.
was Blood of Zeus. Yes, there's 2 seasons now. Both seasons are amazing. Sorry,
Really?
I sung. Did I just sing?
You did. That was E flat if I
And also, Blue-Eyed Samurai was very
Yes.
good as well.
Okay. All right. Blue Eyes. Okay.
Loved
so let
it.
me make some notes here. Okay. So
Yeah,
Okay,
that
so
was
where do I see what did you say? Blood of Zeus?
Blood of Zeus. Season
Where is
1
that?
That's on Netflix. Yeah. That's also on
Netflix.
Netflix. Yeah,
Okay.
Netflix is doing incredible things with animation. It just my jaw just
I have
drops
it.
when I see some of their stuff now. But
Um,
that's actually getting some momentum. People are liking those shows, and Blood of Zeus is set in the olden times of the gods, and I won't tell you too much. As it is basically surrounding the idea of there's a son of Zeus and the whole drama around his life. And it's so good.
wait,
interesting.
there must have been something else. So
I'll have
Blue
to
Eyed
watch it.
Samurai, Blood of Zeus, Picard season 3, House of the Dragon. What else was there? We were talking about?
Blue Eye
Andor?
Samurai was phenomenal. I loved it.
I know you were talking about
the-
how great Blue Eyed Samurai.
I
There
loved
was
it.
Andor. I'm not
Andor.
sure if
That
Andor.
was it. Andor.
Yeah, and Andor.
And Andor.
So
So
there's
Blue Eyed
good
Samurai,
stories out
Blood
there.
of Zeus, Picard season 3, House of the Dragon, and Andor. Okay.
Oh, and I will say, Bacon just remind I did like Bad Batch season 3 as well.
Bad.
It was surprisingly good. I'm a Clone Wars fan, and Bad Batch is kind of a continuation of that. And I thought the first 2 seasons were like good, but the Bad Batch really grew on me, and I really enjoyed season 3. But you could put that on the back burner. Those other shows are better.
Those are the
All right.
ones.
Well, we'll think about those 3, and these are not necessarily absolutely current, but but that's also fine because I had purged my YouTube feed of everything that had to do with Star Wars until my
Smart
brother texted me and was like, "Okay, there's this Acolyte coming out and Carrie Ann Moss," and so I started searching for it, and so now I've got the flood in my feed of just everybody who is. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, and minor disclaimer.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just we have no ill will against any of the actors involved in these shows.
Oh, yes.
I don't even know. I don't even watch the show. I don't know whether it's good or bad or not. I just watched the trailer and I was like, well, that looks boring. I think I'll skip it. I mean, that was my extent of the thought on the matter.
Right.
But that's not the same with everybody else. I mean, the amount. My issue is the amount of energy that is expended on not liking Star Wars is stupid. Like, we could do so much with that. Like, okay, if you don't like watching, okay, fine.
Well, I think there's there is a sense
now
of
my feed is polluted with just everyone who's constantly like, okay, do you know how many times I've seen in my feed that Star Wars has been destroyed?
Oh yeah. Star Wars is dead.
Stupid number of times, like for years, and yet that is what is still being posted on YouTube videos. It's just dumb.
Well, but there's a sense of a cause against really moronic leadership in that company, and I'm with you. It can get excessive, but I also
There's
agree
only so much
with
that
the
you
cause.
can do. I mean, at what point? Like, I mean, 3 months ago, I was like seeing, a YouTube thumbnail entitled like Disney Star Wars is stupid. I'm like, is that really what you're making a video about in 2014? I mean, it's just 2014. I mean, it's just dumb. But apparently people still watch. So, I mean, there you go. It's whether that's what people want or the outcome.
Well, but you're doing the best possible thing. You're not just like complaining about it. You have a show where you don't do that. And
we don't do that. We don't do
right.
that.
So like you're doing the best possible thing in terms of countering something you don't like. And you're leading by example in a way,
Yeah. And I strive
I don't know.
to
The
do
algorithm
something.
probably dominates like bacon.
Yeah. I mean, I strive for the same thing too, because it's one thing you can definitely say your opinion once if somebody asks, but I think sometimes to put a lot of those images and just like thumbnail clickbait stuff like Kathleen Kennedy should be fired for she has disappointed you for the last time. It's like
She's disappointed you for the last time, according to this YouTube video that I've posted for the last 6 years. 3 times for the last 6 years.
Yeah. I mean, it's just
you have failed me for the last time.
Oh, okay. Maybe Wayland Yutani will buy them both. Yes, I think
Tyrell Corporation.
Right. No, I do think that it's because I think it is because of 2 things. One is probably human nature, and the other one is the algorithm that causes this.
Yeah.
So I mean,
they're probably related.
Yeah, well, they're related, but yes, I think they're related. But I mean, you got human nature that likes to talk about things that they don't like rather than things that they like. You like to hear about, you rally around things that people don't like, and there's the algorithm that reinforces things that are, causes that kind of reaction and things like that. So you've got both of those things that are going, and
I'll tell you, as an author, you could get 50 people giving you 5-star reviews. Yeah. And then one a-hole is like, this is the worst book I've ever seen. And you're like, what? And then you read it and you're like, oh my God, this person said that. And that's all you're thinking about. I'm like, and you forget about all the other people that said so many good things. So negativity has a weird way of just kind of throwing a dart and hitting you right in the head. And
it draws a lot of attention. It draws a lot of attention. And like I said, there was no guarantee that I was going to love tonight's episode of House of the Dragon. So, I mean, if I didn't like it, I would be here saying, oh my God, what did they do?
They missed it.
And why? But I did. So, there we go. you know.
It was
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
It was good.
good for the group of people that love great storytelling. Here's a show that you're going to enjoy. They've started it on the right path, and I feel like I'm in good hands. I'm looking forward to the whole season.
Oh, so good.
You guys made me feel more positive about some other things that maybe I should be doing. I mean, Blue Eyed Samurai, you talk about Andor. Okay, maybe
That's so good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And look, if you happen to not like some of these, I would love to know your opinion on
And
that.
why? And why?
Um,
Right,
Yeah,
what happened?
yeah. Because I mean, for me, these are things that I noticed that were really good. But sometimes it's not. We all don't have share the same taste and everything. And also, like, it's just really awesome to hear what people think of the things you like, and hopefully they like them too. I mean, cross your fingers, but
Yeah.
and the one thing about this show that I do love is um it is in that genre of fantasy you don't get to see very often, done well, because usually either it's done as a joke or it's kind of done poorly. So I really love this, and I can't wait to see more.
All right. Me
Yeah.
too. Me too. All right.
Agreed.
Well,
Perfectly said.
I'll invite you back. Like we'll do it again. So we will.
Hey.
Thank you both. Thank you, Retro, for being here. Thank you for Doug for being here. Very short notice. I just decided, hey, let's just do it. Let's just do it. It could have been just me
Awesome.
here by myself. I was like, all right, let's just do it because I love the show. So, I loved season 1. So I was like, I'm going to go live for season 2.
Oh.
So thank you both for being here because I just sent out the links and it could have just been me here. And also thank you to everybody because it was so late breaking. Thank you to everybody who's watching. I mean, we got like record breaking people who are watching here. So thank you to everybody who has been
That's a
watching.
lot. Yeah.
Across
90 is a
all,
lot.
yeah, we got 93 people watching right now. So thank you so much to everybody who has been watching. Hit the like button and share whatever platform you're watching this on, whether it's the Twitch or YouTube or Facebook or wherever it is that you're watching. Please do hit the like button and spread the word. We will be here Tuesday night talking about something, and I'll be here. I might even be live tomorrow morning. I don't know on He's
Ooh.
Geek First channel, another channel. I don't know. I need to
He's
be live.
unpredictable. He can come at you from any
I'm
angle.
starting
Yeah.
unpredictable.
Yeah.
Let me put a link. I'll put a link to the Raven Keep Discord server again in the chat. So if you are here, I always post an announcement about when I'm live. So here is the Raven Keep Discord server. That is the place to join, and so that way you will know. I'm putting that out right now. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Let's continue to be a positive force in the Geekverse.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Champion
All
great
right.
writing and great shows.
Later, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. Go forth, be creative, be constructive, and get good night's sleep. And be
Yes.
amazing, everybody. Later, everybody.
I second.
Here we go.